And here we are, everybody. Hello, I'm Annette McCoy. You're joining us on Angel Heart Radio, which is absolutely fabulous. At this time of the month, I always have Janet Hickox with me. And Janet just happens to be here today too. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you, Annette. It's great to be here. It's kind of funny because I'm still in August and you're in September already.
I know, that's what I found really interesting. Yes, we've hit September and you're just finishing off August.
Yeah, indeed.
The wonders of our, what's the word, globe and how it can be.
Like how technology brings us all together. Doesn't matter what time zones we're in, we could be, no one, looking at our backgrounds, no one's going to know that you're in your early morning and I'm in my evening time or late afternoon, such as it were. So
yes, yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? We
it
just
is.
open up the world. And as you have just found out, I absolutely adore the tennis. And so if I'm prepared to watch during the night, although the US Open is really good, it comes on, I think, at something like 6 a.m. our time, or maybe it's 4, but it's more doable than the Wimbledon, which is right through the night. And
can play
havoc with our lifestyles.
Yeah, but that's why they have DVRs, right? You can just record.
That's exactly right. Yes, aren't we so fortunate? Okay.
Right.
Maz Barnes thinks we're looking great. Thank you, Maz. I'm sure you are too in your little neck of the woods. Well, we are going to be talking about September, the planetary dance. I love that. The planetary dance in September.
I was waxing poetic that day. But it's not untrue that the planets do a dance because they're always moving in one way, shape, or form. And every month, we're talking about a topic to do with astrology that is different from the month before, because never am I on here going, oh yeah, same thing as August. See you later. Bye. It doesn't work that way because the planets are always in motion. And why not describe it as a dance? It sounds more fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Dancing through the sky. So here we are today to talk about some of the big news points of September. And the biggest news in September is there isn't any gigantic, huge news.
Whoa.
Yeah. But there's a few things that we must talk about. Mercury retrograde. Of course, that's probably the biggest news maker of the month. But also, what is it that is about this month that brings us to maybe a point of integrating, right? The summer and your winter has been sort of crazy in terms of astrological transits and how things have been happening. September kind of gives us a respite, if you will, a time where we can go inward and we can sort of take stock. Where have we been? Where are we going? Where are we now? And it's funny because I write with Tam Vayu, the Energy Almanac. So it's a yearly publication that comes out. And then she and I do a show monthly, same as you and I, kind of the same week now even, where we're coming on to talk about the energy of the month. And she's always come up with key words that she uses for the month. And the key words were contemplation, dissection, and oh my God, what was the third word? And some sort of word, restoration, right? Restoration. And I thought, oh, that is so perfect because those words fit, right? There's an element for the month of contemplating where we've been and where we're going and all of that. There's an element of dissection, maybe taking apart, looking at what went wrong, what things do I need to change, or how have circumstances changed, and what might I need to do to keep up with them. And restoration, because seriously, it's time to do some rest, right? Rest is a part of restoration. We're not talking about restoring, some building or something like that. We're talking about restoring our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual selves. And September will be a good month for that, even if there are some things that are going on in the planetary dance.
It's interesting you say that, because I've noticed lately, if people are not resting, taking time for themselves, it's a case of, well, the body goes, wham, take this,
Take
and
that,
we're
body.
forced. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is that element of it. But, the thing is about human beings, we can artificially push and force ourselves to keep going, even if our bodies are telling us it's time to rest. Interestingly enough, in the Human Design Week that begins the month of September, um, the sun is at the gate that is in quantum human design named restoration. And it is all about how, in the sense of our managing and allocating our resources, so time, our energy, our money, and things like that, how we can sometimes get caught up in the doing and the doing and the persevering and the enduring and the doing more, where that is against the natural flow of how energy works, right? Energy works and rests.
Mm-hmm.
So, animals, if you've ever watched animals at play or, doing their jobs, they very much are keyed into knowing when it's time to rest.
Mm-hmm.
Taking naps or going to get a bite to eat or some water. But human beings will keep going, and we'll keep putting our bodily needs on hold to keep going and to keep doing. Well, for a while, that'll work, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a rush to get something done, or you're on a timeline, that will work. But then rest should follow that. But unfortunately, we keep that up as a pattern of
Mm-hmm.
doing and doing and doing more. And it leads to burnout, or it leads to bodily dis-ease, right? Where we
Mm-hmm.
end up sometimes, the universe will say, okay, that's enough. You're now in bed for 3 months, right? We don't want to push. In other words, we want to be able to just go with the flow and take the time that we need to just do nothing,
Mm-hmm.
just to sit out in the sunshine, read a good book, just listen to beautiful music, or just take a nap. You don't have to do it for hours at a time, but
No.
you doing that is a good choice. And so I really think those words that she chose for the month of September, right up there, right up there. Dissection. Let's look at dissection, because when I saw that word, I was like, But in any kind of contemplation, which was the first word of the month, there's the time where we need to, take apart, understand, put back together different things that we've been working on, projects, or sorry, the fan is blowing my hair everywhere today. So, we have those words that are keying us into what this energy is about for September. But it doesn't last, right? So take it while you got it. Yeah, because next month it won't be that way. And even as we get into later in this month, it's not so much that way. So take what you have right now and run with that ball. I said that Mercury turning retrograde is probably the biggest aspect that is impacting us this month. Mercury is in the sign of Libra right now, and Libra is where he will turn retrograde on September 9th. So a week away.
Mm-hmm.
And Mercury retrogrades, it really gets a bad rap, but in a way, it's kind of a time to rest your brain, rest your mouth, right? From all of the talking and chattering that we do sometimes, or all of the mind uh, focus that's going on, mental anxiety kind of stuff, and just relax it. Maybe instead of, having to brain bust yourself, maybe you could just lay about and let inspiration strike you,
Mm-hmm.
instead of working your mind constantly, which of course ends up being something that will also lead to burnout or anxiety, which is another big part of the overthinking and the over focus that we have on the mental capacity, as opposed to listening to the body that's saying, let's take a rest, let's nod off for a while, let's meditate. Let's do something fun and, preserving our health by doing it that way. So
Right.
Mercury in Libra is seeking balance. There's the whole Libran, the scales, right? Balancing work and rest, balancing everything basically in our lives. And Libra is an air sign. So, of course, part of the impact would be the mind and the intellect and all of the thinking processes and how we respond physically to all of the things that we're thinking about. And then as he's moving retrograde, he moves backward into Virgo. And Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So we have another, hit of mind thinking, analysis. I always think of Virgo as, the criticizer, right? Or the constructive criticizer. And being able to, that's where dissection comes in, right? Dissection, deconstructing something to re-put it back together. And what it really means for us is that we have been really very much mind oriented, yet not necessarily bringing into the physical anything that we've been thinking about. So, like if you have an idea, an aha, like this big thing comes to you, and I really want to do this thing. But then I don't take any action on it because it's just staying up here in idea format. Then Mercury retrograde coming along, moving from the mental aspect into, another mental aspect, a different mental aspect, one that wants the grounding of the idea into some form of plan or expression in the physical plane. So that is what we find ourselves then in this Mercury retrograde. We can't just stay up in the head. We'll have to really consider what are our next steps going to be. And they have to be out in the physical world, not just steps 1, 2 through 10 in our heads, never bringing it into the real world.
Janet, Maureen St. Germain has a wonderful question to us when we're unsure. I wonder what is going on. And I tend to use that probably several times a day if I'm.
I wonder what is up.
Yeah. And it just puts it out there, I guess, rather than me. As you say, we can become too mental about something. It's the mind chatter. And that can bring anxiety and stress. Whereas to almost palm it off and go, okay, well, I'm not sure what's going on here. Let's just see. And then I find that I'm carrying out actions more clearly, probably.
Yeah, if you don't give your brain a rest, it's like any other part of your body, right? If you don't give it a rest, it's going to break down, or it's going to move into or force you in some ways to rest it. So all we're saying really for this time is to, one, make what you're thinking about count in terms of how it's going to be brought into the physical, and don't overthink. Give yourself some mental relaxation. Doing some, it feels to me like even when I'm not thinking, I'm doing something that requires thinking. Like just before we went on here, I was going back through and analyzing all of the work that I'd done earlier today, making sure I sent everybody the right recordings, their copies of any paperwork, explanations and so forth. And I went, gosh, even in this downtime, this space that you have, what am I doing? I'm working. I'm working. I'm working. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because sometimes we need to be able to complete things, right? We have to be able to do that. But I think that becomes a pattern and a habit so easily. Instead, I could have gone outside and just started playing with my plants. I could have relaxed somewhere, taken a nap. I should have, since I was up at 2 o'clock this morning, just sort of thinking.
Isn't it interesting? Yes, what we put on ourselves rather than, okay. And sometimes when we take that break, we're more efficient afterwards anyway.
That's correct. And I should have mentioned this, but before Mercury goes retrograde, Venus is moving into Virgo. So we'll also have the planet of values and our relationships in the sign of Virgo. So, the impact of over analyzing and being too much in our heads is it affects our relationships. The last thing you need to do is overthink a relationship. What somebody's motives are, or why is this happening, or why did she say that to me, or all of that. So we want to also watch the impact of overthinking and overanalyzing in our relationships this coming month. Venus is actually in Virgo all the way till the end of the month, about the 29th, when she moves into Libra. And even though, Libra is still an intellectual sign, Venus being one of the rulers there softens that energy. But for these couple of weeks that she's in Virgo, that mind is also going to be more busy.
Mm.
And we do have some help, though, this month, because once Mercury goes retrograde, we will have 6 planets in retrograde motion if you count Chiron. When planets turn retrograde, they take us inward, right? So they by nature become more contemplative, more inclined to be more quieter than they are when they are in direct motion. And that was another clue, I think, that September was going to be a little bit like a resting month, because there's a shift in how the energy is showing up as far as the planets are concerned. It's almost the exact opposite of where we were at the beginning of the year. So remember, at the beginning of the year, we were talking about how no planets were retrograde. We had all planets moving forward, and it was a time for a lot of action. There was also a lot of chaos associated with that. There was also a lot of ups and downs and, discontinuities, like, kind of choppy energy. But now it's the exact opposite. We have a lot of planets in retrograde, not as many as we had forward at that point in time, but still that gives us some more quiet space to, work on our internal through contemplation and other resting types of things.
Get to know our inner self, go within, listen to our own intuition, if you like.
Yeah,
Carol Hessels has joined us, and she said, Drats, missed the first part, we'll listen later, because she loves your work, Janet.
Who is that?
Isn't it interesting and wonderful that, yes, we can have a look later, anytime we like. People often ask me, Janet, oh, what time am I on and where am I on? I said, well, you can watch any time you like, because Angel Heart Radio Facebook page has all of the videos. So rather exciting.
Which is kind of nice.
It is.
Yeah. It's like, being able to tune in at your own time. I mean, look, people in your time zone or in my time zone, it's the end of our day. If you're on East Coast United States, it's even later in the day.
Right.
I think it's 8 o'clock there at night. And that might not be the best time to listen to a show like this that you might have to think about. So you can always go back in later and listen. Go in the morning and listen. But then there are the night birds, right? They can come in and listen anytime.
Londa has joined us.
Hey, Londa.
Sisters,
I miss you, girl. We haven't seen her or talked to her in at least 2 weeks. And that's ridiculous. We live a mile or so from one another.
Oh, wow.
It's just the hallmark of how busy life has been these last couple of weeks. Oh my gosh. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling like that. Like you've been rushing and you're, at the end and you're kind of huffing and puffing because you're now tired and you're almost out of breath. And what's next? Oh, a break. Let's take a break. And I think that's the good part of the month. We do have some other interesting transits happening. It's not like nothing's going on in the sky. Otherwise, I wouldn't have called it planetary dance. But the transits that are taking place are mostly, not all, but most of them are around Mars and Mercury. Surprising, because usually we see like a mix of the outer planets and the inner planets coming into contact with one another. But this month it's a lot of there are connections to the outer planets, so it's not barren there, but it's mostly inner planet dancing going on, which is why it's affecting us personally. But it's also opening gateways for us to be able to do that integration work or to reestablish ourselves in some way. And, the Mars and Mercury ones are the ones that I noticed right away because, of course, Mercury is ready to go retrograde. So I was looking at all of those types of transits. And Mars, did we talk about this last month, how Mars was moving into Gemini for 7 months? Did we talk about that? I mean, that would have been,
Question mark, question mark.
yeah, I'm trying to think if we had a chance to talk about it, but it's a big, long transit. So,
I vaguely
yeah,
remember that because it's such a long transit.
typically Mars spends 7 weeks in a sign, 7 or 8 weeks, depending on what sign it is. So to have a transiting planet, an inner planet in a sign for 7 months, that we have to stand up and take notice, or sit down, lay down, and take notice of what that energy is all about. And the reason why it's so elongated is because Mars will go into retrograde on October 28th until January 12th of 2023. So we have, his retrograde right in the middle of that cycle. But he's going to spend that entire time in the sign of Gemini. And Gemini is a mind sign. It's a sign of thinking and communication. And you put an action planet in that sign, you bet we need this kind of time for some breath work, healing work, contemplative work. Maybe let's not even call it work, relaxation, vacation, to integration, right? Quiet time, to be able to handle the amount of energy coming our way over these next few months.
Right. It's interesting at this time in, I guess, our lives and what's happening in the world that we're being asked for contemplation, given time for contemplation.
Yeah, the Human Design Week that begins the month of September actually began August 29th. So my August 29th, your August 30th, and will run until my September 3rd, your September 4th.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yikes. That just breaks my brain. So I'm not even going to think about it, but it's this first week that we are in right now. And it is the sun that's in the gate 40, and that's called the gate of restoration. And it connects with the 37 on the other side, which is on the emotional center, and that's called the gate of peace. So you're connecting the need for peace and serenity and then restoration because of how busy we have been and then how busy things will get as time goes on. So it's a perfect week to fall at the beginning of the month. But then next week things change. Like, so from my September 4th through 9th, we have another pretty big dance of planets, and human design weeks run differently than the weeks do on the calendar. So when we're looking at an astrological week, we may be looking like, I usually go from Monday through Sunday. But human design doesn't do that. They're usually 4 or 5 days long, sometimes a 6th day. So their weeks are not congruent to the calendar weeks. And this would be the second week then of September, where we have planets that are moving into different gates. Oh, the whole point of me saying that was that means that when a planet moves into a sign, like Mars has moved into Gemini, it will actually move through probably 4 or 5 gates in our human design. So we have different energetic signatures based on the astrological degrees that Mars is hitting as he's transiting through a sign. So that happens with all the planets. So we know we have a lot of planets in retrograde, 2 of which are Pluto and Uranus, and both of them are transiting backwards now into gates that take us on a trip backwards in time, all the way back to late 2019 and 2020, where we all know what was happening there, right? A lot of craziness in the political landscape, a lot of craziness because of a new virus that nobody had a natural immunity to, supposedly, that whole couple of years, which seemed kind of psychotic. And indeed, the shadow energy of Pluto moving now back into the same gate he was in at that time brings us back to psychosis and seeing some of the craziness in the world. If we look at it in a holographic standpoint, we're meant to tap into the awe and the wonder of the energies. But instead, we may tap into thinking we have to do things in a certain way and hoping and praying that we're going to get a new result. But then we don't get a new result. And so what we do is we just do it again. And then if that doesn't work, then we do it again. And then we do it again. And if we never really change what we're doing, we get the same result. And literally that's insane, right? That's psychosis. It's insanity, right? To keep thinking that we can do things with the expectation that the outcome will be different. So these next few months, taking us all the way through the end of the year with Pluto, will be about, looking very deeply at the structures and the institutions that have crashed and burned and not trying to resurrect them in the same way. We have to look at what was unsustainable about them and create a new pathway. And that, is going to infuse every part of our lives. It isn't just, the things like the government or, the supply system and things like that. It's everything, right? Everything that we've built. And there is another little energy there around simplifying, right? Simplifying. And interestingly, Uranus is also going backward into a gate that he spent the better part of the year in. In fact, did he start the year in this gate? I think he might have. Hold on, let me check my thingy here. No, he was in a different gate. No, that's Neptune. He was definitely in a different gate, but for the most of this year, he's been sitting at the gate 2, which is called the gate of allowing or receiving, right? So he was teaching us all kinds of lessons, kind of revolutionizing our ideas about having to work for money and about changing it to be more about being in receiving. And I find it interesting because you heard a lot of people, and I still hear people talk about those people that don't want to go back to work, right? Those people who lived off the government during COVID and blah, 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 blah. What they don't understand is the energy that was being brought up at that time was about being blessed by the largesse of the world, of the abundance, the abundant nature of the world, and breaking the pattern of our thinking that we only could earn money by working, or that working for money was somehow what we were meant to do. That was never a part of the plan. That's purely human made. And so Uranus is now moving back into that gate after giving us a little taste test of simplifying our lives, right? What is the simplest thing that we could do? Right, rather than the complexities. The reason why the systems and institutions all crashed and burned was because they were too massive. They were too complex. And any little, a little teeny weeny virus that we probably can't even see with the naked eye, we'd have to see with a very powerful microscope, takes down one system after another. So that it's just kind of crazy when you think about it that way. So, we were in this process for a short time of looking at our own lives and thinking about how we can simplify. Where have we gotten something built up too massively? Like, what things could we live without? What things?
It's interesting, Janet, because Londa and Carol have entered the discussion. First of all, Londa's talking about detaching. Her first comment was she found it was interesting. The other day she was working with a couple and she said they needed to dance, which allows the masculine, feminine to link. So that was interesting. Surrender, etc. And Londa's right into mystery. Let the mystery come on. And detaching, which of course we would really, you were alluding to that at the beginning, weren't you, when saying, we can get too caught up in our lives rather than
Yeah.
Standing
Or
back.
too caught up in what we think it is that we have to do or who it is that we think we have to be, which then takes us away, further away from that wonder, that awe, and that magic of life on this planet.
Mm,
So, yeah, detach, but also understand that because we have been on this stream of busy, 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 that we
mm,
really do need that time to just veg, relax, be a lump on the log for a while.
mm.
Um, or do things that are fun or pleasurable rather than always working. I mean, I have to take my own darn advice here because
Yeah.
I've just been like nose to books or in charts for what seems like months, maybe even since about April or May.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've had a vacation. Yeah, I took some time off. Yes, I've done fun things, but it's beginning to wear on me. I know that it is. And because I was so welcoming of September, right? But we also have to take steps for ourselves to bring in that relaxation energy. It's
Mm,
just not going to happen because we can always rationalize why we have to keep doing what we're doing
exactly.
because that's
Well,
who we are.
Carol would like to know, is this a good time to sell a house? She's wondering about before the end of October because Carol and her husband are simplifying and downsizing.
The only negative chink I could think of here is Mercury getting ready to move into retrograde. So that just says, be careful of, watching the contracts and the unexpected sort of, things that happen. If you put it on the market already or before September 9th, that might be helpful. But also Mars turning retrograde in October could slow action down on selling a house. So I guess, you know, yes, there are rules that we can make up in astrology about when things are best to be done, but also you have free will. And
Mm,
if you have an intuition that this is the time to put your house up for sale, then do it because your power, your will, your knowing is much more active than any wisdom in the divine system of astrology or human design even. So use your own um, your own intuition. But definitely know because those planets are going to be in retrograde very shortly that you want to make sure you double check and triple check all communication. Make sure that what you really are stating about the house is true. Not that you would purposely go out and say untruths, but it happens, right? So just recheck and check if that's what you want to do. A
mm.
better time might be to wait until after about January 20th. But who wants to wait that long if you're excited and intuition is telling you to move? And again, your chart could be different, right? Carol, which Carol is this?
Carol Kessels,
Oh,
which
I don't know
brings
her chart. Okay. I was thinking
no,
if I knew if there's a couple Carols whose charts I know, but um your personal
however, that
chart could do
that
something.
that reminds me, Janet, to remind our audience if they would like a free chart, human design chart, to visit your website, which happens to be there very clearly in your background, which is fantastic. We
Yeah.
don't have to explain it. So
Yeah.
that's always an option for Carol and anyone else who might be unaware that that is an
Yeah.
option.
Yeah. And the reason it's important to know your own chart is because if you're someone by chance who has Mercury retrograde in your chart, Mercury retrograde might be a good time for you to do things when for other people it's slowing things down. And if you have Mars retrograde in your natal chart, then it might be a time where action for you is actually more congruent than at other times. So, it's hard to just have these hard and fast rules because everybody's chart looks so different, right? And there's so many different energies and combinations that are possible. So go with your own gut or go with your own intuition, your
Mm.
instinct. it'll never go wrong, right? Yeah.
It's interesting,
So,
isn't it, Janet, how sometimes well, I know I do. I just have a knowing. It's
mhm.
last Monday, I just knew I had to do something in particular. Wasn't quite sure why. And quite often I can do something thinking it's for A, and then I find that when I get there or do that something, it's actually for B or C. The universe doesn't mind how it gets us to do something as long as we do it.
Right. And it's not even the universe getting us to do something. It's our own choosing to pay attention to our intuition or to our instinct.
Mm,
You have the choice in that moment to act according to your instinct or your intuition or to not.
mhm,
And that's the thing. It's not, I mean, the universe isn't running our lives. It's just saying, as you wish, as you wish. You want to not do what your intuition is telling you. Okay, right? Who am I to stand in your way? So, that's the thing. We always have choice, right? Our choice is to do or not do based on our own instinct or intuition, or knowledge. Sorry, I had to move the fan. I can hear it reverberating, so that's annoying me. So we always have that. You always have your choice and free will. That's one of those
true.
major universal truths. So if you
Yeah.
choose to sell your house, Carol, great. Be all in for it. Be all
Mm.
in. Don't waffle. Then there's mixed signals going around. So if you choose to sell your home, be all in, right? And go back it up. Just know that with planets in retrograde, sometimes the process is slowed down, and sometimes you have to do more than what you thought you might need to do. um, and just expect, some possible things that might be needing to be done that you didn't think about.
Well, Carol says she feels Mercury retrograde before it comes in. She actually feels good in Mercury retrograde and things move forward.
She is like me. I have Mercury in retrograde in my own natal chart, and the before the retrograde and the after the retrograde beats me up, and the during the retrograde, it's like smooth sailing. So I have about 12 weeks out of the year where I might have smooth sailing, just because of the way my own chart is. So I'm already aware of that. Like I already started, we went into the shadow of Mercury retrograde. I want to say it was August 24th. Um, and wouldn't you know it, all kinds of weird stuff started happening in my world in that period of time. And it was kind of weird, like weird stuff this time, like no computer problems or issues like that, but my time getting away from me, where I end up at the end of the day going, how did I get here? Like, where was I? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I had the other night, it's starting on Sunday, a series of weird things. My cat brought in a mouse and it was alive. My husband is looking under the bed for the mouse, and the mouse was actually on my bed with me in it. And
Oh,
there's this, I sit up to see what it is he's doing, and there's this little teeny weeny field mouse. They're not that this big, but some primal scream came out of my mouth. And my husband goes, "What?" And I'm like, "The mouse is on the bed." And my husband, my hero, he just reaches out, snatches that mouse, and goes and takes it away out into the field somewhere. Hopefully the cat won't go get it again. And then that same morning, I went to take a shower, and I always shake out my towels because I'm always worried there's going to be some kind of bug in my towels, like a spider, not a bug, but a spider. And I didn't do it that morning. I just dropped them, got in the shower, picked up the towel to dry my hair, and a spider like that size
oh,
dropped out
ah,
of my towel onto my feet in the shower. I mean, I couldn't get out of that shower fast enough. And here I am squealing like a little girl yet again. My husband's like, "What? No, another mouse?" No, a spider. He's like, "Oh, because these big spiders, they migrate this time of year, and they usually migrate through the house." And then it wasn't but an hour later, I was doing laundry and I heard a weird sound, like a snapping sound. And next thing I knew, my washing machine was overflowing water. I had another flood in my house.
No.
I mean, seriously, it was. I'm like, Mercury retrograde. Where? What? Mm, because that
Carol
num.
said,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Carol.
The same thing. She loves the new moon energy compared to the full moon.
Yeah. Um, you want to look in your chart, maybe, Carol. Maybe you were born closer to the new moon. And so it, feels good to you to be in that same zone that the moon was in. And I mean, I think we all have different affinities for the different planets, in motion and different signs, how they resonate with other planets and how they come into relationship with other planets. So it's true. It's super important to know your own chart because there are literally a billion ways that all of these planets can come together and how they would impact you versus how they would impact the next person and on and on. So knowing your chart is a huge part of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing your human design, the benefit there is that you know how it is that you make decisions. So no matter what the background noise is, if you know who you are and how it is that you're meant to make decisions and how your energy rolls, then you are always making good decisions no matter, that's what I was saying, even if Mercury's retrograde, right? Because you're in tune with what's right for you, what's correct for you. So knowing both, invaluable, right? So
Cool.
there's one other fun change happening at the end of this month. I think it's the 25th of September. And that is the planet Jupiter, which represents our growth and our expansion and our optimism and our fortune and good luck, moves into a gate in our human design on the identity center, which is the center for love and direction. And it's called the gate of the love of spirit. And I've watched this approaching and wanting that energy so badly because I feel like it might possibly soothe a whole lot of stuff going on in the outer world because it's based in love energy, and the earth will also be in that same gate that day and giving us a blast, if you will, a love blast
Good.
of that loving energy and giving us direction as long as we are following what's correct for us, what's the most loving thing that we can do for ourselves, because that will also be a loving thing that you can do for others. So and I think Jupiter is in that gate for the rest of the year. So it'll be a longer period of time where we have, this optimism based in love that's coming from a planet that is ruling our evolution of consciousness. So I'm looking forward to that, even if it's not for another couple of weeks.
Carol is too. She said, the gate of the love of spirit. Love that.
Yeah, there are 4 gates of love, and they all sit on the center of where the seat of the soul is. So we call the identity center sometimes the seat of the soul. There's the gate of the love of the body, or being in the physical. There's the gate of the love of spirit. There's the gate of the love of humanity, your fellow human beings. And then there's also the gate of spirit. Totally went out of my head. Yeah. Oh, humanity. That's that one. Oh, self. The love of self, the love of humanity, the love of the body or being in the physical realm, and the love of spirit. And those gates are always found activated by the sun and the earth at the turning of the seasons. And so every season that we come to, we get a different iteration of the gates of love. And this is the season where what is focused upon, so it'll be our fall, your summer, your spring, sorry. The equinoxes are a time where we are the embodiment of spirit. And if we are in embodiment of the divine, then our actions should mirror that, right? And that's the key. And it's just going to take on a different, not a different, but a longer kind of energy, because Jupiter will be sitting at it through the end of the year. And whatever Jupiter touches, he magnifies. So we might have this magnification of everything that's unloving in the world, so that by contrast, we can create lovingness. But some people create by similarity. So we might find those people gravitating to situations or people where love abounds, and away from where there isn't love abounding. So it'll be an interesting time, I think. But just remember that you are an embodiment of divine spirit in a physical body, and both need to be cherished, both need to be loved. And it's interesting because they always travel in that same pair. In the opposite time in spring, they are opposite. So it would be the sun at the gate of the love of spirit, and the earth at the gate of embodiment. So anyway, just kind of a quirk of the way human design works, that the seasons take us into new energy about love, fine tuning, as it were, love in our lives.
Well, can we get enough love? Can we spread enough love?
I'd like to see the world try.
Yes,
right? At least, yeah.
And
I mean,
it starts with all of us, doesn't it? Each one of us, we can make that difference.
Yeah, we can make that. And we're absolutely capable of bringing more and more love to anything in our lives. And I don't know why we don't. Right? Our egos, I think, get in the way or get triggered, or fear comes up, and fear is the exact opposite of love. So we're either in fear or we're in love. Love, of course, is expansive, and fear is a contraction. So we get a dose of expansive nature of spirit in the fall and leading into winter this year. I like that. I just love that.
Indeed.
Yeah. Now, the very last Human Design week actually runs from September 27th through October 2nd. And here's where we start. It's a good thing that Jupiter moves into the gate of love, because this begins a time period where the sun begins to move through all of the gates of the spleen center in your human design, which is a center that mediates intuition, health, and time, and survival energies. And it can also bring up fear, because the survival instincts are born from fear, or fear is often used to help us survive. Fight, flight, freeze, all of those things have kept us alive. But because we are not in the same circumstances that we might have been in ages gone by, fear has morphed into sort of false fears, or false evidence appearing real, if we use an acronym for fear. So for the last week of September, all the way through the second week of November, we'll be dealing with the sun at each one of the gates on the spleen. And the possibility is that some kind of fear comes up. And the different fears are things like inadequacy, a fear of the future, a fear of the past, a fear of failure, a fear of, what's that word? Purposelessness, a fear of perfection, or being, that I'm not perfect. And so it's a great time for us to really take a look at a fear of the past repeating itself. That's another one. And as each week goes by, we're going to be kind of tasked with, or shown in our lives, where we might be resonating with fear rather than love. So that brings up some interest. That's why I said the first 3 weeks of the month are pretty cool. Restore, dissect, and contemplate. But as you get into those last weeks of the month, it gets to be a little bit more, possibility is that it can be a little more difficult for us, for the world at large. It doesn't necessarily have to be difficult for us as individuals, but we might see the reflection of more difficulty in the outer world, whether it's through the economy or jobs, markets, supplies, all that, politics, psychology, all of that kind of stuff. So remember, love answers it all.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I think seriously, there are other energies we could talk about. There are some emotional energies that come up for the month as well. And they are some powerful impacting emotional energies. So it does, mean that a positive thing that we could all do for ourselves is to understand emotional energy. And instead of reacting to people or to circumstances or things that happen, to respond, right? To choose consciously what you're going to say or do or not do, such as the case may be, rather than that knee-jerk gut reaction that we get sometimes when somebody hurts us or when something happens that we don't like. So that could really serve us because some of those emotional center energies that get hit are very powerful ones. Experiential, impact, love, war kind of energies, right? Where love is the high side and war is the low side. So, and not literal war, although that's always a possibility, but in a feud with someone where it escalates to the uglies, or on the other end of things where we apply love and it just dissipates and the problem seems to just magically disappear. So we have that opportunity. And then I guess the last thing that we still have time. The last thing we could talk about is the new moon for the month of September, which occurs on the 25th in my time zone. It is at 9:43 a.m. So that's going to put it 15 hours ahead of us, would be you guys.
Right.
So likely is that going to put you in the same day? I can't count that fast. It'll either be in the wee hours of the night of the 25th for you or the 26th. And it's an interesting one because the new moon is a time when the sun is conjunct the moon, right? They're all conjunct. Well, as well at that new moon, the sun moon are going to conjunct Venus and also conjunct Mercury and also oppose Jupiter. So we have like a lot of possible different pathways for manifesting at that new moon. And some of them might be over the top because of the opposition to Jupiter. And we might have to scale back some things maybe that we thought, that we'd planned out something perfectly. And then we realized we bit off more than we could chew. So the new moon might afford us an opportunity to backpedal a little bit or to redirect some of our own personal energies in new ways. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to that new moon because all of those conjunctions together make for a stellium, and that stellium of energy will be in Libra. So it'll be a balancing act. How do we balance some of the energies in our lives? Because it'll be Venus and Mercury and the sun and the earth, or not sun and earth, sun and moon, all in Libra at that point in time.
So it's going to be very cozy for those.
Yeah, I think it is a gateway to new relationships or new ways of being in relationship with one another. It certainly puts the spotlight on how we are with one another, how we communicate with one another, or how we don't communicate so well with one another. So I think there's a lot of opportunities with that new moon that can impact our relationships in positive ways. So you might circle that day. It's a green day on my calendar, which means it's a good energy day.
Excellent. Well, Tom Wright has joined us, and Tom says love is infinite, omnipotent, yes, that word, and omniscient. Example, my cup runneth over. There is always more than enough love, gratitude, and light. Just take the first step when praying, sending it out, manifesting, etc.
There you go. Well said, Tom.
Yeah.
Well said. So anyway, in a few days after that new moon, by the way, Venus actually is making her mark by, affecting Libra as well. And she rules that sign. So it's a good timing for really seeing love from all sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
In all different relationships that you have, platonic love, romantic love, um, the love we have for our family, the love we have for friends, and just, looking at love in a bigger picture. So, and that goes right along with Jupiter being at the gate of the love of spirit, right? Really seeing through the eyes of spirit how each person is, right? If you're looking at someone, even someone you don't love so much or that you don't really like so much, if you saw them through the eyes of spirit, you would see that they are just as deserving of time, love, and attention as anybody else, right? So it's elevating ourselves to a level that I don't know that we've even approached yet on the planet. And a lot of it has to start with losing our judgmental sides, letting go of the
Right.
judgments and the criticisms and the he should, she shoulds, and the all that. Um, so we still have work to do, but months like this give us those opportunities to practice new ways of being.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Now, Tom's had challenges, shall we say, with the technologies, missed the past 40 minutes, but of course, with the benefits of video, he can catch up later. So
That's funny because we talked about that exact topic at the very beginning of the show.
Yes.
About how no matter what happens, you can always go back and listen.
Yeah.
So don't think you missed anything, Tom. Yeah,
Have a little
you didn't
rest
miss anything.
later, Tom, and take in the show.
Yeah, yeah. Sit back and relax and listen. I
Mm.
need to sit back and stop talking because my throat is practically raw from all the talk I've been. I had a radio
Well,
show to do this morning, and then I had 3 clients, and then a fourth client that kind of popped in, and then this show, and I'm like, I really just want to not talk now.
well, you've done extremely well, Janet, and I
Ah,
can
gracious.
say to you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now you
Thank
can
you.
stop
Yeah,
talking and you can enjoy your evening meal.
right, right. And not talk.
Chew instead.
Anyway, well, thank you so much for having me on here. It's always my pleasure to come and chat with you and your listeners.
Well, we've had another lovely, lovely time together. Thank you to everybody who has joined us. May I just remind you that these shows should never replace your legal, medical, or professional advice, nor your own sound judgment. Hope you've enjoyed the time we certainly have, and I look forward to seeing you next month, Janet, and hopefully I'll see.
October.
Yes, can we believe it? My goodness me, the year's zapping by. And I look forward to being with lots of you next week. Bye for now. Let's put
Bye,
our
everybody.
love forward.
Love
Bye.
it is.